Leora stood on the balcony of her high tower overlooking the planet Vira. The sky was painted in dark red and orange, hues as distant lightning flashed across the horizon. Her mind wandered, filled with reports of approaching ships. Her people had been preparing for war for months, but something felt different this time. Rumors had arrived from distant systems of a human warrior whose name was whispered in fear and awe. Leora had never met a human before. They were considered fragile, incapable of surviving the dangers of interstellar battles. Yet the stories described feats that seemed impossible. Her hand rested on the railing and she stared at the horizon. Nivara, her dragon, coiled near the edge of the balcony. The dragon's eyes glowed faintly as if sensing something unseen. Nivara had been with Leora since she was a young queen and had fought beside her in countless conflicts. The bond between them was strong, but even Nivara seemed uneasy. The air felt heavy, charged with tension that Leora could not explain. Inside the tower, Kina, her advisor, approached quietly. She carried data tablets filled with intelligence gathered from scouts. Kina spoke softly and urgently. She warned Leora about the human warrior, describing him as a force unmatched by any military units in known space. According to the scouts, this human had survived ambush, outsmarted entire battalions, and wielded a strange, glowing blade with deadly skill. Kina's words were careful, but fear slipped into her voice. Leora listened, absorbing every detail, feeling a mixture of dread and fascination. The queen had always been cautious, ruling with strategy and foresight. Her people trusted her judgment, and Vera was known as a formidable planet with strong defenses. Yet something about this human warrior made her blood run cold. She had faced countless invaders, conquered rebellions, and yet the reports of Ethan, the human warrior of legends, unsettled her more than any threat before. Hours passed and the sky darkened further. Leora decided to observe the arrival herself. The communications screens displayed a small, battered shuttle descending toward Vera. It moved with an odd steadiness, unaffected by the defensive turrets that would normally repel intruders. Leora leaned closer, watching as the shuttle touched down near the outer perimeter. Smoke rose from its landing gear and sparks flew, but the shuttle remained intact. The humans were not known for technology as advanced as Vera's, yet somehow this one had reached her planet alone. Nivara shifted beside Leora, a low growl vibrating from deep in her throat. The dragon's instincts sensed danger, yet they also hinted at the arrival of something extraordinary. Leora nodded slightly, understanding that Nivara felt what she herself could not yet name. There was power in this human, a power beyond normal comprehension. Kena handed Leora the last of the intelligence reports. The reports described the human's movements, his calm in the face of overwhelming odds, and his reputation for single-handedly turning battles. Leora read the words over and over, each sentence strengthening the sense of foreboding. She wondered what kind of human could survive such trials and why he had come to Vira. Was he an ally or an enemy? Or something entirely different? The shuttle's hatch opened, releasing a small cloud of smoke. The figure of the human emerged. He stood tall, scanning the surroundings with alert eyes. His armor was worn, marked with scratches and dents, evidence of past battles. The glowing blade he carried shimmered faintly, humming with energy. Leora felt a chill run through her body. There was something in his stance, in the way he moved, that commanded respect and inspired fear at the same time. She had seen soldiers and generals fall to panic before, but this human radiated a calm that seemed unshakable. Leora descended from the balcony, her steps measured. Guards flanked her, ready to respond to any threat. Nivara followed closely, the dragon's wings brushing the walls as she moved. The human noticed them, but his expression did not change. He bowed slightly, a gesture that surprised Leora. He had arrived as an unknown threat, yet he acknowledged her presence without aggression. There was a strange confidence in him, a certainty that made Leora hesitate. She stepped forward, her voice steady despite the racing of her heart. She asked the human his name. The moment the words left her lips, she felt an unexpected tension in the air. His response was quiet but firm. Ethan. The name seemed simple, ordinary even, yet it carried weight. Leora felt her face pale, her pulse quickening. She had heard this name before in whispers across the galaxy. Ethan, the human warrior of legends. Kena glanced at Leora, sensing her reaction. She remained silent, understanding that the queen's composure was delicate at this moment. The human did not move, did not speak further. His presence alone commanded attention. Leora studied him, noting the steadiness of his gaze, the calm confidence in his movements. It was unlike anything she had encountered. For a moment, time seemed to pause. Navara lowered her head slightly, watching Ethan as if trying to understand his intentions. Leora realized that she faced a challenge unlike any before. This human was not just a warrior. He was a force that could change the balance of power on Vyra. Her decisions in the coming hours would determine the fate of her people. Ethan took a step forward, his movements deliberate. He did not draw his blade, yet the hum of its energy seemed to fill the space around them. Leora felt a mixture of awe and fear. She had faced enemies with advanced weapons, powerful magic, and cunning strategies, yet none had unsettled her like this human did. There was a story behind his name, a story she had yet to uncover. But she knew instinctively that it would be a story that mattered greatly. The guard shifted uneasily, sensing the tension in the air. Leora raised her hand slightly, signaling them to hold. She needed to understand the human, to gauge his intentions. Ethan's calm presence suggested he was not here for destruction alone. Perhaps he sought alliance or guidance. Perhaps he carried a mission that would change everything. The sun set behind the mountains, casting long shadows across the landing area. Leora and Ethan faced each other in silence, the weight of history and legend pressing down. Navara's eyes glowed brighter, and Kena's hand hovered near her side, ready for any sudden move. The human warrior of legends had arrived, and the fate of Vyra hung in the balance. Leora knew that her next actions would shape the destiny of her people and the future of the galaxy. The stage was set, and the story had only just begun. The morning sun rose over the hills of Vyra, casting long golden shadows across the landscape. Leora stood on the balcony of her tower, her mind replaying the events of the previous night. The arrival of Ethan, the human warrior of legends, had shaken her more than she wanted to admit. She could not stop thinking about his calm strength and the way he had faced her without fear. Navara coiled beside her, her scales glinting in the sunlight. The dragon had been restless since the human arrived, moving with silent power and watching every movement closely. Kena approached with a tablet in her hands. She had been reviewing the latest intelligence and could barely hide her concern. The scouts reported that Ethan had moved without weapons for hours through hostile territory, surviving ambush and natural hazards that would have killed ordinary beings. Kena shared these details with Leora, explaining that no known human had ever shown such skill or resilience. Leora listened, absorbing every detail, her mind a whirl of curiosity and caution. Leora made a decision. She would observe Ethan personally as he moved through the city. She needed to understand him, to see if he was a threat or a potential ally. She summoned a small vessel to take her closer to the landing site. Navara followed, folding her wings carefully to fit the corridors. The streets were quiet as they approached, the citizens of Vyra watching from behind closed doors. Word of the human's arrival had spread quickly, and whispers filled the air. Ethan was already moving through the city. He walked with purpose, scanning the surroundings with sharp eyes. His armor was scratched but intact, and the glowing blade on his back pulsed softly, as if aware of his presence. Leora observed from a distance, noting how naturally he moved through unfamiliar terrain. He avoided obstacles, anticipated dangers, and interacted with locals carefully, leaving no sign of fear or panic. She could not help but admire his skill while remaining wary of his intentions. A sudden alarm rang from the city gates. Leora's guard had spotted a group of rebels approaching. They had chosen this moment, hoping to take advantage of the disruption caused by Ethan's arrival. The rebels were armed and aggressive, but they had underestimated the human warrior. Ethan moved with speed and precision, disarming several attackers without injury to himself. His movements were fluid, almost dance-like, yet deadly in their effectiveness. Leora watched, her breath caught in her chest. As Ethan neutralized the threat effortlessly, Navara growled low in her throat, sensing the unusual energy around the human. Leora understood the dragon's concern and nodded to her. She allowed Navara to descend closer to the ground, her massive wings casting shadows over the rebels. The sight of the dragon alone was enough to send some attackers fleeing. Ethan did not seem surprised by the presence of Navara. He adjusted his stance slightly, acknowledging her power while remaining focused on the task at hand. The fight ended quickly. The rebels lay disarmed and subdued, and Ethan stood among them calmly. He did not boast or celebrate. He simply sheathed his glowing blade and turned toward Leora's vessel. She felt a strange sense of respect growing for him. He had demonstrated power, skill, and control, yet there was no arrogance in his movements. This was a human unlike any she had ever encountered, someone who could change the balance of power in ways she could not yet understand. Leora decided it was time to meet Ethan directly. She descended from her vessel and approached him with measured steps. Navara followed, keeping a watchful eye on the surroundings. The human noticed her approach and bowed slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement. Leora's heart raced, but she maintained her composure. She introduced herself, explaining her role as the Queen of Vyra and her concern for the safety of her people. Ethan listened carefully, his calm demeanor unwavering. He responded with clarity and respect, assuring her that his presence did not bring harm unless forced to defend himself or others. The conversation continued, with Leora asking about his origins and purpose. Ethan shared little, revealing only that he had been sent to investigate threats to interstellar peace. His words were simple but carried authority. Leora realized that this human possessed intelligence and experience far beyond what she had expected. She felt both fear and admiration, understanding that his capabilities could not be ignored. As the day progressed, Leora observed Ethan interacting with the citizens. He offered assistance to those in need, helping rebuild minor damage caused by the rebel skirmish. His actions inspired loyalty and trust among the locals. Leora could see why his name had become legendary. He was not just a warrior. He was a symbol of hope and strength. She began to understand that his presence on Vera could change the planet's destiny, for better or worse. Kina approached again, reminding Leora of the delicate balance they needed to maintain. The Queen knew that alliances and trust would be essential if they hoped to survive future conflicts. Leora nodded, her mind already forming plans for integrating Ethan's skills into the defense of Vyra. She also understood the need for caution. Despite his calm and respect, humans were unpredictable, and Ethan's motives were still largely unknown. As evening approached, the city quieted once more. Leora returned to her tower, her thoughts filled with the day's events. She realized that she could not treat this human like any ordinary visitor. Ethan was extraordinary, and his arrival had shifted the course of events on Vyra. She glanced at Navara, who had settled beside her, and felt a renewed sense of determination. The dragon had sensed the importance of Ethan's presence long before she had. Now Leora understood that their lives, their people, and their future were connected to this human warrior. The night descended quietly, but Leora could not rest. She paced her chambers, replaying the events in her mind. The human had shown courage, skill, and wisdom beyond measure. He had neutralized threats, gained the trust of her people, and demonstrated an understanding of strategy that rivaled even her own. Leora knew that the next steps were critical. She needed to decide whether to confront him fully, test his loyalty, or begin a tentative alliance that could change the fate of Vera forever. Outside, Navara let out a low growl, a reminder that danger could still emerge at any moment. Leora reached out and touched the dragon's scales gently, drawing comfort from her loyal companion. She knew that the path ahead would be filled with challenges, battles, and choices that would test her leadership. Yet, for the first time in many cycles, Leora felt a spark of hope. The human warrior had arrived, and with him came the possibility of change, of survival, and perhaps of a new chapter for Vera. The Queen understood that the story was just beginning, and the legend of Ethan was about to unfold before her eyes. Morning arrived quietly over Vera, but the calm was only on the surface. Leora walked through her private gardens, her mind heavy with thoughts of the human warrior. Ethan had proven himself in ways no one could have imagined. His skill, composure, and calm presence were all beyond what her people had seen. Still, the queen could not shake a feeling of unease. Something about him was unpredictable, and she knew that knowing his full strength was impossible without seeing it for herself. Kinda joined Leora in the garden, carrying information collected from the outskirts of the city. Reports of strange movements by rebels and unusual energy signatures near the borders had reached the palace. Kina suggested that they investigate carefully. Leora agreed, knowing that she needed to understand the larger picture. She also wanted to see Ethan in action beyond the controlled environment of the city. The queen summoned a small team of guards and advisors, including Mara, her trusted aide. Navarra flew ahead, scouting from above. Leora led the group to a sector where scouts had spotted suspicious activity. The terrain was rugged with jagged rocks and patches of dense vegetation. Leora kept her senses alert, aware that even a small mistake could be dangerous. Her people relied on her judgment, and she could not fail them now. Ethan arrived shortly after, moving with silent confidence. He assessed the area quickly, nodding to Leora without speaking. His presence inspired a strange sense of calm, yet the queen could feel a growing tension. The air around him seemed charged with anticipation. Leora watched carefully, noting his every action, studying his ability to read the environment and anticipate threats. Suddenly the ground shook. Rebels emerged from hidden positions, armed and ready to strike. Their numbers were small, but they had the advantage of surprise. Leora raised her hand, signaling her guards to hold. She wanted to see how Ethan would respond. The human did not hesitate. He moved with precision, neutralizing threats one by one without panic. His glowing blade swung with deadly accuracy, yet none of the movements seemed hurried or reckless. Navarra descended from the sky, her wings casting long shadows over the rebels. Her roar shook the ground, and some attackers froze, unsure how to respond. Ethan did not falter. He adjusted his stance to account for the dragon, using its presence to his advantage. The rebels were taken down quickly, their plans undone by the coordination of the human and the dragon. Leora could not hide her admiration. She had seen warriors, generals, and soldiers with incredible skill, but Ethan was different. His strength was not just in his blade or his speed. It was in his mind, his ability to read danger and act decisively. She realized that his reputation as a human warrior of legends was not an exaggeration. Every movement, every decision, every calculated risk confirmed the stories she had heard. After the rebels were defeated, Leora approached Ethan. She asked about his purpose and why he had come to Vera. He spoke quietly but clearly, explaining that he had been sent to protect peace and investigate threats that could destabilize multiple systems. His words were simple, but they carried weight. Leora understood that he was not a common soldier or mercenary. He had a mission, a purpose that aligned with protecting life and order. The queen also observed how Ethan interacted with her people. He treated them with respect and consideration, listening to their concerns and helping where needed. Leora noticed that even her guards felt more confident with him around. They followed his lead instinctively, trusting his judgment and skill. This was unusual for humans, who often struggled to adapt quickly to alien customs and tactics. As the day progressed, Leora found herself drawn to Ethan. His presence was calming yet powerful. She could not deny the sense of awe that came from witnessing his abilities firsthand. Yet the queen knew that admiration alone was dangerous. She needed to maintain control, to ensure that her people's safety and the stability of Vera were never compromised. Kina reminded Leora that the rebels might return with greater numbers or more advanced strategies. The queen nodded, realizing that this was only the beginning of the challenges they would face. She needed to plan carefully, integrating Ethan's unique abilities into her defensive strategies without revealing too much of her own vulnerabilities. It was a delicate balance, requiring both trust and caution. Evening came, and Leora returned to her tower. She watched the sun sink behind distant mountains, casting long shadows over the city. Ethan stayed behind with the guards, continuing to assist and observe. Leora could see how naturally he adapted to the environment, how he remained vigilant yet composed. His presence was becoming a cornerstone of her strategy for defending Vera, alone in her chambers. Leora reflected on the events of the day. The human warrior was extraordinary, capable of feats that seemed impossible. He had neutralized threats, inspired confidence, and shown an understanding of strategy that matched her own. Yet she knew that relying too heavily on him could be dangerous. Ethan was an unknown variable, and his full capabilities and motives were still unclear. Navarra rested nearby, her eyes glowing softly. The dragon had sensed the importance of Ethan's presence long before Leora had. Now, the queen understood that their fates were intertwined. The decisions she made would affect not only her own life, but also the survival of her people and the future of the planet. The story was far from over, and the arrival of the human warrior had shifted everything. Leora knew that the coming days would test her leadership, her judgment, and her ability to navigate a new era with the human by her side. The sun had barely risen when the alarms rang across Vyra. The rebel faction had returned, stronger and more organized than before. Leora stood on the balcony of her tower, her eyes scanning the horizon. She could see small groups moving quickly across the landscape, weapons glinting in the first light. The city was ready, but the sheer number of attackers made the queen uneasy. This was not a minor skirmish. It was a coordinated siege designed to overwhelm her defenses. Navarra unfurled her wings and let out a powerful roar that echoed through the valley. Her presence alone caused some rebels to hesitate, unsure how to respond. Leora felt a mixture of fear and anticipation. The human warrior Ethan had faced challenges before, but this was the largest threat yet. She needed to see how he would respond in a situation that demanded every ounce of his skill and courage. Ethan appeared near the outer walls, moving with precision and confidence. Leora watched as he quickly assessed the battlefield, positioning guards and civilians to safety. His movements were calculated, fluid, and instinctive. He did not rush, yet every step carried purpose. The rebels advanced, and the clash began. Ethan engaged immediately, his glowing blade cutting through the attackers with skill and control. He did not strike recklessly. Each motion was deliberate, neutralizing threats while keeping himself protected. Navarra dove from the sky, her massive wings creating gusts of wind that sent some rebels sprawling. The dragon's fire illuminated the battlefield, striking fear into the hearts of those who dared approach. Ethan adjusted his tactics, using the dragon's presence strategically. He directed guards and civilians with simple hand gestures, maintaining order and maximizing the effectiveness of their defense. Leora moved among her people, observing both the chaos and the calm. The sight of Ethan fighting alongside Navarra inspired confidence. Even the most fearful citizens felt a surge of hope. Leora realized that his presence was more than skill. It was leadership, courage, and an unspoken ability to inspire others. She felt admiration mixed with caution. Aware that such power could also be dangerous if misused, hours passed as the battle raged. Ethan continued to hold the line, his blade moving with precision, neutralizing threats and protecting allies. Navarra stayed close, her movements synchronized with the human, creating a formidable force. The rebels had underestimated the combination of human strategy and dragon power. Slowly, they began to falter, their attacks becoming disorganized and ineffective. In the midst of the battle, Leora noticed a small group of rebels attempting to infiltrate the inner city through hidden paths. She signaled Ethan, and without hesitation he moved to intercept. His speed and awareness were unmatched, and he neutralized the infiltrators quickly and efficiently. Leora realized that his legendary reputation was well earned. He was not just a fighter. He was a protector, a strategist, and a force that could alter the outcome of war. As the day continued, the rebels began to retreat. Their morale shattered, they fled from the battlefield, leaving behind weapons and supplies. Leora allowed herself a moment of relief, knowing that the city had survived this attack. Ethan stood among the remaining guards and civilians, calm and composed, his blade still glowing softly. Navarra rested nearby, her eyes scanning the horizon for any remaining threats. Leora approached him, her steps measured. She acknowledged his skill and bravery, expressing gratitude for his protection of her people. Ethan listened without pride, nodding respectfully. His focus remained on the safety and stability of Vera, not on personal recognition. Leora felt a growing respect and trust for him, understanding that his abilities were a vital asset for the future of her planet. As evening fell, Leora returned to her chambers, her mind filled with the events of the day. The siege had tested her defenses, her leadership, and the capabilities of her allies. Ethan had proven himself in ways beyond imagination. His presence had not only defended the city but also inspired loyalty, confidence, and hope among the citizens. Leora knew that the coming days would bring more challenges, but she felt a newfound sense of strength, knowing that the human warrior was by her side, alone in her chambers. Leora reflected on the bond forming between them. There was trust, respect, and an understanding that transcended words. Navara lay beside her, her glowing eyes watching the queen with awareness. The dragon had sensed the importance of Ethan's role long before Leora fully understood it. Now, the queen realized that the future of Vera, the survival of her people, and the balance of power in her world were intertwined with the human warrior. Leora made plans for the future, knowing that the challenges ahead would require careful strategy, cooperation, and courage. She could not predict all the dangers, but she understood the value of having Ethan by her side. The human warrior of legends had arrived, not just as a fighter, but as a symbol of strength, hope, and the potential for a new era. The siege had ended, but the story was far from over. Leora knew that the battles ahead would test them all, and the decisions she made would shape the destiny of Vera forever. The morning sky was calm over Vira, but Leora knew that peace was always temporary. The events of the past days had changed the city, the people, and even herself. She walked through the palace halls, observing the citizens who had come out after the siege. Their faces carried relief, but also admiration for the human warrior who had saved them. Ethan moved among them, calm, helping rebuild structures and comforting those affected by the attack. His presence brought reassurance and stability. Leora felt a mixture of pride and respect. She had seen warriors before, but none like Ethan. He had faced overwhelming odds and emerged victorious without arrogance or cruelty. His glowing blade was no longer a symbol of fear, but a symbol of hope. Navara followed him closely, her presence reinforcing the sense of security and strength. The bond between dragon and human seemed unspoken but undeniable. Leora observed silently. Appreciating the harmony of the unusual alliance, Kena approached with updates about the rebel faction. They had retreated, but intelligence suggested they were regrouping on distant borders, possibly planning another strike. Leora realized that the peace on Vera was fragile and that the human warrior would play a key role in securing it. She needed to speak with him about the future, to discuss alliances, strategies, and the safety of her people. She also felt a personal curiosity about the man who could command both fear and respect. So effortlessly, she found Ethan near the central plaza, helping citizens lift debris. His focus was unwavering, and he moved with purpose, balancing strength and care. Leora approached quietly, not wanting to interrupt his work, yet she felt the weight of the moment. When he noticed her, he nodded respectfully and stepped aside, allowing her to speak. Leora expressed her gratitude for his bravery and skill, acknowledging that without him, the city might have fallen. Ethan accepted her words calmly, never seeking praise, but showing a quiet humility that surprised the queen. The conversation turned to the future. Leora explained the need for alliances, for strategies that would prevent further attacks, and for the integration of Ethan's abilities into the defense of Vira. He listened attentively, offering insights and suggestions based on his experience. His ideas were practical, simple, yet highly effective. Leora realized that this human was not only a warrior but also a strategist, capable of understanding complex situations and providing solutions that even seasoned leaders could appreciate. As the day went on, Leora and Ethan walked through the city, observing the recovery efforts. They spoke little, but their silent understanding grew stronger. The people watched them, sensing the connection, the trust, and the mutual respect. Leora felt a strange sense of relief, knowing that the human warrior was not only powerful but also trustworthy. Navara flew overhead, occasionally landing to interact, reinforcing the sense of unity and protection. In the evening, Leora returned to her tower, her thoughts consumed by the events of the day. She reflected on the bond forming between herself, Ethan, and Navara. The human warrior had proven that legends were not always stories of the past. Some legends could exist in the present and shape the future. Leora knew that relying on his strength would be essential for the survival and prosperity of her people. The queen called a council with her closest advisors, including Kinna and Mara. She discussed strategies for the coming weeks, plans to secure borders, and ways to strengthen alliances. Ethan contributed quietly, his presence alone influencing decisions and inspiring confidence among the council members. Leora realized that with his guidance, her leadership could reach new heights, and the people of Vera could achieve stability and safety. Later, Leora found a quiet moment with Ethan and Navara. They stood together on the balcony, overlooking the city as the sun dipped below the horizon. The warm light reflected off Navara's scales and glinted softly from Ethan's blade. Leora felt a mixture of respect, trust, and curiosity. She understood that their alliance was more than just military. It was a partnership built on courage, skill, and mutual understanding. The future of Vyra would be shaped by their combined efforts. Night fell over the city, bringing calm and quiet. Leora watched as citizens moved about safely, knowing that the threats that had haunted them were now being managed by capable hands. She turned to Ethan, acknowledging the importance of his role in their world. His presence was a reminder that even in times of uncertainty, strength, courage, and wisdom could prevail. Navara rested nearby, her watchful eyes ensuring no danger approached. Leora realized that this was a new beginning. The human warrior of legends was no longer just a name whispered across galaxies. He was here, present, and active, shaping the destiny of her people and the future of Vera. The queen felt a sense of hope she had not known before. Together with Ethan and Navara, she could face the challenges ahead, knowing that they had the skill, courage, and trust necessary to protect their world. The story of Vera had reached a turning point, and the legend of the human warrior would continue to inspire, protect, and guide them into a future filled with possibilities, strength, and unity.